Robert Smith, do the right thing. Sort Gary Sykes' belt out and put it in history books that he's British champion outright at super featherweight. And I'll leave you alone, Robert Smith. Alright? What you forget?
I'm Peter Fury, and don't forget to subscribe to Porky's Corner, because I've been a helmet of the month and you need to listen to me. Yeah? So follow him, yeah? And get the fella some followers up, for Christ's sake. He wears his heart on his sleeve, he's a good man, Russ. So follow Porky's Corner, he says it as it is, and you know, I appreciate the helmet of the month, Russ.
No problem, thank you very much.
You're welcome, mate.
Right, well, we've covered the Ben Davidson one now then. Tyson Fury said that if you don't get him a fight for end of, is it next month or beginning of March or something, he's sacking his promotional team, didn't he? Well, that time's nearly here now, isn't it? In another 4 or 5 weeks. Do you think he'll sack his promotional team?
Tyson Fury, we talked about him before. Love Tyson Fury. Listen, I'm not going to talk about Tyson Fury the fighter because he's proven.
Yeah.
He's number one. The guy's got bigger balls than anybody out there, right? So no need to discuss Tyson Fury the fighter. But he's such a contradiction, his Fury. You listen to him in one interview and he'll say something and you think, you know, that's really poignant. That's such a great thing to say. And then he'll say something else and you kind of feel yourself shaking your head. And I heard that comment that he's going to sack everybody. I don't get a fight February, I'm going to sack everybody. Well, we're halfway through January, nothing's been announced. So are you going to be a man of your word? Are you going to serve notice on Bob Arum and Frank Warren and say, there's nothing lined up right now? Because it might surprise us all. There might be a fight announcement at the end of February, but you only have to look at Tyson Fury's lack of activity since he fought Klitschko. And listen, this is not the Joe Louis schedule, is it? This is a modern day part-time heavyweight. And he's a professional, he's the best in the world, but he's a part-time fighter. Yeah. He must be a part-time fighter because he's not doing 3 or 4 defences every year like Larry Holmes and Ali used to do. This is part-time boxing. Full-time celebrity, part-time boxing. So will he sack his promotional team if he doesn't get a fight soon? Absolutely not.
Right.
Pie in the sky.
Would you be surprised if Tyson Fury in the next 12 months signed me a deal? Would it surprise you?
Nothing would surprise me whatsoever because contracts aren't worth the paper they're written on. We say in boxing you're only as good as your last fight. Well, I guess you're only as good as your last promotion. And we see all the time in boxing people say, "I'll never speak to this guy again. I've done it myself. Said it myself.
Not that old chestnut.
Said it myself, and then I've been bloody pals with somebody afterwards. Just own it." So Eddie would love to work with Tyson. We know that, don't we? Yeah. Because Eddie Hearn talks more about Tyson Fury than Tyson Fury does, and he doesn't even promote him. So Eddie would absolutely love to work with Fury. Fury, I genuinely believe he doesn't care much for Eddie Hearn, the man. I think he's not Fury's kind of man. I think Frank Warren's more his kind of person who's a bit more direct, a bit more old school, a bit more straight, a bit more perceived integrity. But does it matter? Is boxing pure? Are boxing managers and promoters, are they all nice guys? Are they all pure guys? Nah. Fury will work with anybody who's going to pay him millions and deliver what he wants them to deliver, and he'll have no problem doing that.
Yeah. Okay. Brain trauma. The board is supposed to be tightening up. There's people, is it CTE?
Yeah, CTE is becoming, well, obviously, was it 10, 11 years ago? It was all over the news with the NFL. Yeah. Lots of former players showing huge signs of brain trauma because of the hits that they took. And then we saw the same thing with rugby union about 12, 18 months ago. There was a lot of noise around rugby union. And I was talking to someone over Christmas, a friend of mine, again, I won't mention his name, for pride reasons. He's suffering from CTE, but he has a claim at the moment against the rugby league. And I think I was told that he's one of 400 players or something who are looking into this right now. So what we're getting is a massive backlash in sport. Yeah, football, heading the ball, etc. the science is mixed. There's kind of a view that, it's difficult to pinpoint CT as a direct to head trauma. And then there's other evidence where it's absolutely clear. What we are seeing is an increase in CT. We are seeing an increase in boxers failing scans, mentioning no names. I'm not talking about one individual now. I'm talking about several individuals over the last 12, 18 months who I know who have had issues with brain scans and know it's likely they won't fight again, or it's unlikely they'll fight again. And I'm talking about a lot of boxers now, by the way. So this is something the board are clearly tightening up on the scanning. I'm guessing as procedures get more advanced, more things are picked up on. So you got to commend the board there. That's a really good thing that they're doing. But the problem what I have, is everything with the board of control safety is at the beginning of the event to after the event, and I'll explain. So one of the rules, what they've done, for example, in rugby union, is reducing the amount of practice games, because it's like boxing. You might only get 1 or 2% worth of damage during the fight. Everything else is in the gym. Everything else is in practice. Tyson Fury, who shows no signs, by the way. Tyson Fury has done what? 20 rounds worth of boxing in the last 2.5 years. How many rounds worth of sparring has Tyson Fury done? Hundreds of rounds worth of sparring. So the rugby union are looking at practicing and looking to reduce massively. So what I'm saying is everything that the board does goes from by the time you step into the ring. We have the best scanning equipment. We have the best medical doctors on our team. Yeah. We have safety at ringside. We have paramedics. We have ambulances. We have yearly scans, etc. We do all this stuff, and the medicals are stringent. That's to be applauded. But what about everything before that? What about coaching and educating trainers and coaches and gyms on CTE? What about reducing sparring? Boxing is what it is. You're always going to get head trauma, of course you are. But are we looking at those things? We're just looking at. It's a little bit like when head guards were brought into amateur boxing. The truth came out about head guards in amateur boxing, certainly at the senior Olympic level. They were more for perception. The two reasons they brought the head guards in, one was because of the whiplash, the head hitting the canvas, it cushioned the blow, the cranium, the weak part of the skull, and the second part was perception. If we keep amateur boxing as an Olympic sport and put the head guards on, the viewer, the consumer, the perception is it's a safer sport. But it's not. Head trauma is head trauma, whether you've got a head guard on or not. So what I'm saying is, what are we going to do about this problem? Because NFL, it's happening, okay? People know the dangers, and one of the arguments with the NFL and the rugby union was that rugby players are not informed enough about the dangers of the sport. Well, everybody knows boxing is dangerous, but to what level do they know it's dangerous? What are the percentages? What are the risks of fighters? Because we all love boxing. We can't be hypocrites here. It's a dangerous sport. You can't turn around and say boxing's a safe sport. What you can say is we have done as much as we can to make the sport safe, but have they? And I'm not aiming this at just the board of control, but as the regulating body of boxing, it has to start with the board of control. So there are so many aspects of this. What's going on in the gyms? You see these fighters who talk about gym wars. We were talking last week recently about Gary Sykes having hard spars with Terry Flanagan and Steve Mail, and I had to stop those spars. Gary's last 2 or 3 years, I had to really reduce the sparring that I did. And then you learn from it as a coach, and I learned from it as a coach that when I started with other professionals, I would massively reduce the sparring that they did. I worked with a professional for the last 2 or 3 years, and I would massively reduce the sparring to the point he was having 4 rounders. We were doing 24 rounds of sparring during that camp. That was it. And a lot of that was technical sparring. We have to be looking at the safety of these boxers. We have to be looking at the sparring. And people work with the badge, don't they? You say, I've just done 8 rounds, 12 rounds sparring last night, blood all over, smashed each other up. You're damaging yourself. Fighters are damaging yourself. Boxing's a dangerous sport. We know it's dangerous, but we have to be looking to educate people and educate boxers and raise awareness, because just like the NFL, just like rugby union, now it's creeping into rugby league, people at some point are going to be pointing fingers to the board, and for all those people who manage them and looked at them and says, I now suffer from CTE. You didn't make me fully aware aware of the dangers. Yes, I was aware it was a dangerous sport. Yes, I had scans. Yes, I got feedback. He didn't make me fully aware of the dangers. He didn't make me fully aware of the result of all this sparring I've been doing, all this work I've been doing. So I think boxing needs to get with it and start to look, not at the fight and what goes on after the first belt. It has to look at everything that's gone on in training. We have to look at this increased sparring, what we keep seeing. I'll ever see fighters sparring on social media. That's all I ever see. It's a tough sport and you have to be aware of what you're going in for. But boxing causes major head trauma. We love the sport. As we've said before, we're voyeurs, we're involved in the sport, but it's a dangerous sport and people are paying a price. A lot of fighters out there right now are paying a price. So could boxing be safer? It could be safer. And one of the things that I saw in the final one, Russell, one of the things I saw in the boxing board handbook about safety was talking about boxers being match fit. How many opponents do we see? Certainly some of these imports, they're not match fit. They're not fit for 4-rounders. It's just diabolical, some of these guys who are getting past fit to box. I think it's absolutely diabolical. So we have to look at cases like that. We have to look at, I know, for example, and I'm not calling people out, I know a guy who will be classed as a journeyman who's 0-28. This is not a defensive genius. This is not somebody who's, I choose my words, but this is not somebody who's like some of the older journeymen who could Willie Warburton, who could pivot and mess and hug and mess people around.
And a good little fighter with
Good little fighter, Willie Warburton. He didn't take too many shots, but the one guy I'm talking about in particular, this is a guy who pretty much every time I see him fight, which is quite frequent, he gets hammered every single time. Why are the board not looking at fighters who are 0-25, 0-20, 0-15, 0-30, 1-50? I'm talking about guys who clearly can't fight. I'm not talking about toughness is one thing. I'm talking about guys who every time they get in the ring they have a go and just get battered. Whether it's over 4 rounds or whether they're getting stopped, they get battered. They used to have a rule, didn't they? If you got 3 back-to-back losses or 5 back-to-back losses, the board would call you in, they could suspend your licence, etc. They're not doing that now. They're not doing that now. And I see kids with records like that. Good kids who are big hearts, they want to fight, they want to earn money. But at what point do you just say, you're not competent? I'm sorry, but we have to do what's not just the guys who are
competent or confident.
Competent. At what point do you say this guy's not competent? This guy is clearly not competent. We have to take his license.
Yeah, how I explain that, I think I've mentioned it in the past. I always say, look, if you've had 25 fights and you're 25 losses, you're doing something wrong. If you sprayed 25 cars for 25 customers and each job went no good, you'd lose your job, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. We know there are fighters out there who are 5 and 10.
Yeah.
They can fight, they just don't always get the decision, they don't always put a shift in. These are, 10 and 30. These are the reliable journeymen who will give you a workout. But that's one thing. These old school, the Warburtons I've just been talking about, these are the old school guys who can Christian Lake, a guy like him, could just mesh around for 4 rounds, not get hit. He could have a shower, that guy, not get wet. A guy like that is fine. But I'm talking about the kids who are just getting battered week in, week out. You've highlighted several shows. I've seen several shows the last year. Left-hand side, unbeaten. Right-hand side, not a win between them. Come on. What damage are we doing to these people? You got to
scraping barrel now. Products watered down from 20 years ago, isn't it? And wages are not as good as they were 20 years ago.
I think boxing might need radicalising. We have a Premier League, we have a Super League, we have laws and we have restrictions, and to reduce the numbers sometimes gives us a better product and it gives us a higher skill level, a higher level of competency. But at the moment, there are so many. Anyone can get a border control fighter's license. If you're a reasonable age and you pass the eyesight and your blood's in your chest and you scan and everything comes back, that doesn't mean you're ready to fight. That doesn't mean you're competent to fight. It just means you're in good health. That's all it means, you're in good health. So where's the integrity of the sport? Where's the integrity of trainers who take people on who can't fight? You're not bothered. They're actively now, aren't they? People are advertising, looking for journeymen to go on the road.
Yeah. Edward Gutnick, his claim's gone through for the High Court against the court. He's took legal action against Boxing Board of Control. Because they're saying that they know he had a brain injury prior to him fighting George Groves. It's about 7 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
I
think I remember that fight. Yeah.
6, 7 years. Yeah. What do you think to that? Do you think he'll be successful if he's got proof? Because somebody's obviously took his case on, haven't they?
I don't know the full details, so obviously it'd be dangerous to go into the details. I remember the fight, and I remember the injuries that
he was brave, wasn't he, in that fight?
Very, very brave. And I think he says he has an issue with the Board of Control for allowing him to fight. So I guess, and Robert Smith and the doctors would have a more accurate view on that than I would, for instance. But I guess it's the question, isn't it? Did he have previous issues? Had he had previous bad losses? And I wouldn't know that. I don't know if overseas fighters are cleared by their own scans, or if scans are shared with the Board of Control. I don't know all of these things, but what I would say is if he has an issue and if it's gone to the High Court, then he clearly has some argument, doesn't he? Because whenever anything goes to the High Court, packs are submitted and people look at the evidence, and then because court costs an absolute fortune, there must be something in this for this claim to go forward, to go past this stage that it's gone past. So such a shame what's happened to the guy. It's so sad, but I don't know if previous issues were disclosed or not. I don't know the details of the case, but all I do know is these kind of things don't look good on the Board of Control. They don't look good on the Board of Control, and I guess we'll have to see how that one pans out. But again, it highlights the dangers of boxing, and are we stringent enough? I know the Board of Control is a non-profit making organisation, but are we stringent enough? Do we have to start to squeeze the promoters now to get more from them, to increase awareness, increase the due diligence, and start to look at these fights coming over? Because you come over fight George Groves, you're obviously a competent fighter, but what about everybody else? I know the British Boxing Board of Control can't regulate every fighter in the world who fight from overseas who comes over, but I don't know what checks and balances are put in place. And this raises the question, doesn't it? People with previous issues, it raises the question about the communications between overseas boards, the Board of Control. I think I don't know enough about it, Russell, but there's got to be something in it for it to get to this stage.
Yeah. What's the latest with Gary Sykes? We're getting his being declared as winning belt outright from the board. Have we got any news?
So I won't go into full disclosure with your viewership right now, but I've spoken to Gary since, obviously, and I have had contact with the Board of Control. It wasn't a response that I wanted, and it's not a response that I'm satisfied with. Now, what I will say is I've had a lot of people since you kindly invited me onto your show and Gary to discuss this. There's a lot of people showing an interest in this, and this has resonated with people out there. Not just with fans and people who love boxing and follow boxing, but there are a lot of license holders who have come forward. A lot of people who at the time were involved in boxing, people who might not have been involved in boxing, who have come forward and says, well, there's a couple of bits missing here, there's a couple of bits what are missing here. However, my understanding was the answer was mandatory. And that's several people have come forward, some quite high profile names. So it's a case of reviewing that information, piecing more things together. It will be a long process. And I know you're in the same place as me. I'm not finished with it.
No.
Definitely not finished with it. I don't dispute that the Board of Control has said there is no paperwork to point to Johansson. But what you have to look at is you have to look at the history, you have to look at the understanding of everybody else involved, and you have to look at events around it. And I've done some more research, I've done some more digging, and a couple of more interesting things came up since then, which really just, whether the board made Johansson mandatory or not, they absolutely should have done. And there are things that really point to that. The reason I'm not going to say too much now is because I am going to take it further. I'm not happy, Robert Smith, with your response, but I do appreciate your reply, by the way, and taking the time out to respond. But it's not done. And okay, what paperwork you've said, I think there's a lot of circumstantial evidence. There's a lot of verbal support right now for people that is making this quite an overwhelming case. So it's not done. I know you're not done with it, Russell.
No.
I'm not done with it. I'm not satisfied with it. And you can show me whatever paperwork you want. I think there's a moral issue here in terms of not just Gary Sykes, but there's a moral issue in terms of Carl Johansson, who was undisputedly the best contender out there. And I'm not happy with it. It's just a case of doing it right, getting information correct, putting a pack together, and then I'm going to take it to the next step. It looks like I've exhausted communications and exhausted the decision of the Board of Control, so I'll have to go the other way, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But it's definitely not going away. I think it's wrong what's happened to Gary Sykes. Gary Sykes, we haven't covered this on your channel, and I appreciate that. Gary Sykes has had his challenges, by the way, and he still has lots of challenges, but you need to look at this, and you need to look after this kid, and you need to put this right, because there's a real sour taste. I keep repeating this, but there's a real sour taste, and you could have done a good thing. You've chosen not to do it based on whatever technicality you believe to be the case. You could have done a good thing, and you haven't done it. So disappointing. It's definitely not over. It's just round one, as far as I'm concerned.
Right. I think that's about it. Just wondered if you wanted to add anything, Julie?
Just again, thanks for you coming over. I really appreciate you coming over. You're looking a lot better since you've had your own problems. We were all worried about you for a while. I know we've covered this now. You're looking fit, you're looking lean, in shape. And I think it's just thanks to everybody who watches. And I'll always repeat this point because I get 2 or 3 people say, I saw you on Porky's Corner, Brill, loved it. And I get a few people saying, I'm not sure why you've gone down that avenue, going on Porky's. And like, honestly,
he's anti-establishment.
People think you're anti-establishment. Listen, we've seen it all week, haven't we? And by the way, I'm not talking about sexual cases, but brilliant what the Queen's done with the ex-Prince Andrew. Boris, you're going to go at some point. We're seeing, aren't we, the little people, the people who have forgotten about these bureaucracies and organisations and these establishments what have been around forever, think they can just treat people like shit, and they think will just go away. And we're seeing now, aren't we, almost like an uprising where people saying, that's not acceptable, that's not acceptable. And we're getting the same response. And I think that's what your channel's about. You might not even think that yourself, but I think your channel's about, it's tongue-in-cheek. I think you love boxing, and I think some of these people, you might not admit this, Russell, I think some of these people who you give little jabs to now and again, I think you quite like them. It's just, do you know what? Look, it's just a bit of fun. And we're all boxing people, so why are we all so sensitive?
Yeah.
Why are we all getting upset and offering each other on and challenging each other over things what we don't like? Look, it's a bit of fun, okay, but there's an underlying serious tone to what you do. And you're not anti-establishment for the sake of being an anarchist. I think you're actually saying, that's a shower of shite. That's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. Give us back our beautiful sport. So the Board of Control, the WBC, the WBO, all these organisations, you don't own boxing. Boxing is run by the boxers. Without boxers, we don't have a sport. So you need to run it better, you need to look after it better, promoters, you need to do a better job, managers, you need to do a better job. Everybody involved needs to do a better job. And I think what you're doing is you're basically calling out bad conduct. And you know what? Anywhere else, you'd be like, if it was like regulating the British Gas or whatever, watchdog, you're just doing your job. And you might feel, well, people say, well, who made Russell in charge? Well, you're self-appointed, just like all these organisations that you make comment on. You're self-appointed. You're a self-appointed regulator of these guys. So
is that what I am? I'm a regulator.
That's all right. Well, you're calling out bad behaviour, and I've probably done the same thing, and it makes you unpopular, doesn't it? And it's not a case of, why are your numbers growing? Why are your views growing? Why are your subscriptions growing? People aren't just joining for a bit of light humour and a little bit of a laugh. They're thinking, you know what? I said this before, it's a long speech, sorry. That's how I feel as well. I feel this is wrong. And you just say it. And it might make you outspoken. It might make you unpopular. Doesn't make you wrong, does it? No.
I'm pretty fearless in most things, as I usually see it to end. But so far, nobody's thrown a punch at me, so I must be telling the truth.
The truth does sting, doesn't it? And I've done things in my life and made mistakes in my life. And I've said things when I was young. Like Ben Davison, I was young, I was coaching, I was thinking I was the dog bollocks and all this kind of stuff. And we've all said things and done things, but with age and maturity, you get a little bit older, a little bit wiser, don't you? But you're just saying what's true. And as I've said, repeat the same point. We're seeing parallels with what's going on right now in the world and people calling out bad behaviour. And I think that's all you're doing. Do the Board of Control, do the promoters, does everybody involved in boxing have a tough job? Yeah, they've got a tough job. It's not easy. Eddie Hearn probably works 18 hours a day. They've got a tough job. They're dealing with boxers as well who are quite unreliable characters. Everyone's got a tough job, but does that mean so you can't do better? No, we can all do better, all of us.
Yeah. Okay then, well listen, thank you very much. And I'll get this dropped off at Tech Guy's house on my own. It's only Ponty. It's not bad, Ponty.
Yeah, it's not bad. M62, yeah.
All right then, listen, you take care, thank you.
Thanks everybody, thanks Russell.
Bye. Well, I enjoyed that. Some good proper boxing chat there with Julian. Bit of an update on the Gary Sykes situation. I can see that going on a long time, a bit back and forward stuff, but fair play to Julian for standing up for his fighter and for what's right. So my kind of guy. So alright, so I hope you've enjoyed the video. I'm now off back to South Yorkshire. Ooh, I'd bend this. Alright, so peace out, keep on trucking, keep supporting boxing. Oh, we keep trying, don't we? Alright, you take care, thank you.
Hey Max, how you doing mate? Russell just sent me a video of you doing a little bit of a bag workout. Good work, mate. A couple little tips if you want them. Bearing in mind I'm 50-year-old and riddled with arthritis, so it's not going to be up to much. Couple little things I noticed that you were doing. Try and break your habit, okay? So when you were throwing your jab, every time you threw your jab, and I'll do it in slow motion, you put your head down at the same time. So that could become quite predictable like that. Putting your head down every time you throw a jab. Imagine you just get suckered, throw a right uppercut. Whenever you put your head down, yeah, you ideally want to do that when you're throwing power shots, or when you're blocking, or when you're in the pocket. The jab should be at a nice long range. So when you're throwing that jab, you don't want to be putting your head down every single time. So get your body position comfortable when you're on the outside, because obviously the jab's the outside shot. Get your body position comfortable, chin nice and low, nice and relaxed. Just before you throw it, so instead of going like that, literally, nice and fast, nice and relaxed, and just relax and keep the head position as it is when you're throwing your shot. Just like that. Just like that, in and out, nice and fast, yeah. No head movement, that's not coming there, that's not overbalancing. Backhand nice and tight, in range, nice and loose. And try and vary that jab a little bit as well. So what happens is everybody throws the jab in the same spot. What I always say is 4 points of a jab, yeah? Eyes, chin, chest and solar plexus. And every jab you throw with different speed, different power, different range, different body position. But try and vary it a little bit. Just count 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 being the eyes, like that. 3 being the chin. Yep. 2 being the solar plexus. Have you noticed? I'm now dropping the height on the lower shots. Abs again, being a distraction punch, yeah? 4, 3, 1, 4, 3, vary it all the time, okay? That was just one little thing that I noticed. Another thing that I noticed as well was when you were throwing that right up to the body, okay, there were a couple of little mistakes there, just a couple, all right? First thing you were doing is your arm was stiff, and you were taking your arm and everything else with a shot. You were going like that, opening your rotation, making yourself nice and wide and nice and open. Whenever you throw a hook to the body, and ideally you want to be throwing that left hook, even if you're going to throw right up to the body, which is a shot, it's not an easy shot to get off, you got to drop your height. You've got to drop your height, because if you think of a hook to the body, if it's a right hook to the body, pop, or a left hook to the body, it's a power shot, okay? It's a power shot, but it's a mid to close range punch. So what you definitely don't want to be doing is opening yourself up there, and also you're doing a little bit what I call the chicken wing, is lifting your elbow up like that. Get your elbows tucked in, get the position comfortable, drop your height, and then throw it from your chin back to your chin. See that? From your chin, boom, back to your chin. Not throwing it from your hip or throwing it from your waist. Same with the left hook. People throw that left hook and they'll lift the right elbow up like that, they'll telegraph the shot. You got to drop from your chin. So punches start at your chin. Body punch, head punch starts at your chin. There, like that. Again, back to the jab. Snap, yeah, snap. Chin position, like that.